Welcome to Through the Web, episode 11 with me, your co-host Tawsif.
And myself, Dagogo.
And we're on episode 11. Do you know about pod fade?
Pod feed?
Pod fade. Or pod fading?
No.
So this is a concept that's very popular in the podcast industry, that after episode 6, people start pod fading, which means they go into oblivion. They'll be very hyped up on the first few episodes. People will make podcast episodes, release it, publish it, share about it. And just about episode 5 or 6, they slowly start fading away.
Right.
And most never make it past episode 8 or 10. And we're on 11.
Oh.
So we have avoided the pod fade successfully.
Wow. Look, now that just shines another new light on this. This is such an achievement.
I know it's a very, very popular term in the podcast industry, and as a podcaster myself, with other things that I've done, I've seen it happen with many other podcasters.
Yeah. So is it just the fact that people go in gung ho thinking it's going to be like easy and just get there, and then when it doesn't pan out instantly, they just
exactly. And I think because the barrier to entry for podcasts is so little today, all you need is a good pair of microphones, or just one microphone. Your laptop's enough. Sometimes people even use their phones, right? And it's really easy to upload. You can even do it for free. You don't need a whole subscription pack or anything. But it's the building of a community that's the hardest, right? And it's not easy. If you just keep publishing every now and then, not being consistent, you'll eventually fade out. So far we've successfully avoided pod fade. Now it's how we can get to the top 1% of podcasts in the world. That's the next fight.
Okay. That's
huge fight.
That's a huge one.
You climb one mountain and there's another one straight ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. But how's your week, man? What you get up to?
Yeah, it's been a very busy week. I went on a road trip to Dunsborough over the weekend. The thing is, being the designated primary driver, while as much as I love driving, the problem is if it's a short trip, it feels like all you've done is just drive. And it was only gone for like 2 days. And the problem is once you get back from it, just go straight into work. It just feels like nothing happened except driving.
Right.
And I'm feeling the effects of it still today. I'm just still tired.
Right, fair enough. For those of you who don't know, Dunsborough is about
3 hours.
3 hours.
If you take a bit of stops, it's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
it's not too bad.
Yeah,
but I think if it's done, with the idea of relaxation or just a getaway thing, it just doesn't feel like, especially with a young family. And stuff, so.
I guess if there's any people from Europe, you'll be scratching your head saying like for 3.5 hours, like that's you could be in another country. That far.
Oh yeah.
But WA is like it's half of Australia, and you can drive for hours. And
USA probably could relate a bit better.
Yeah, a little bit better, but
in the US.
WA is a huge, it's
huge
bigger
state.
than a lot of countries.
Easily.
So it's insane. But all glad to hear you got a little reprieve at least or something.
Yeah, at least something away from the day to day. But yeah, I think it's next time what I'll do is I'll book an extra day just to get back into the rhythm. I think that's the lesson I learned. So how are you? How's your week?
Yeah, well, speaking of traveling, yesterday I picked up my new passport actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's 10 years between passports, so I kind of forgot that I had to renew it because I'm going away on a trip to Europe actually.
That's right.
2 trips to Europe actually. I picked that up yesterday and got that all sorted. Haven't booked anything even though I'm flying off in a month, so gonna do that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, kind of excited. So it's an awards night that I'm going to be at. Been nominated for a little something in Amsterdam. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Congrats.
Well, thank you. I haven't won yet, but
still nominated. So that's good.
But yeah. So it's good. You watched anything interesting lately? Seen anything?
Last night I was watching this legacy YouTuber. I forgot his name right now. I haven't watched him before, but he's got like 6 million subscribers. If you just hold on a second, I'll
What kind of stuff does he do?
Yeah, so his name is Daniel Howell. 6 point something million subscribers. And he is just mostly to do skits and stuff.
Okay, I see on your screen that video why I left YouTube, right?
Why I quit YouTube.
Yeah, why I quit YouTube. I saw that in my subscriptions. I didn't know who he was. I was like, oh, I'll watch it. I'll buy it. So I was going to watch the same video.
Yeah, I think we got the same recommendations. But yeah, his Daniel Howell, I was watching halfway through. It's like a really long hour and a half long video, and it's his first video in like 2 or 3 years. He basically disappeared. But the story of it is that how the early heydays of YouTube just was so much full of promise, and it was the wild, wild west. Is, you know, you're young, especially those who were doing YouTube at the time were like young kids, and then the lucrative career started happening, and then it was just fame and fortune and lots of attention, creating content for others. And I think what we're seeing slowly now, and the video represents it well, is like those legacy YouTubers are slowly trying, almost in an existential kind of place where they're like, oh, I've done this for like 10 years or so. Where am I at now? Like, what's my future like? What, especially if you're a solo creator where your entire livelihood is based on your name and not like a, you know, media company or anything like that. I think it's harder to kind of, you know, get yourself to a point where you're in peace and content about the content that you make. So I think that was a very interesting look at what's happening in the world of YouTube. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can kind of relate to the first part of what you were saying in terms of just the YouTube landscape changing and just how different it is from the beginning. Because I was there through the whole thing. I was watching YouTube in 2006. Like I saw just how crazy it was, and like people were just doing whatever they wanted. It was really free and just completely different to what it is now. And then I guess from that you got like edgy commentary and stuff, and that kind of stuff was a big part of like a lot of that creator community. But then it's like, you know, the filthy Franks and all that, they can't exist anymore in the way YouTube is now today. Because like, even though YouTube hasn't said anything, they've kind of pitched their brand image away from like broadcast yourself, which they've removed, to like
specifically talks about the tagline, broadcast yourself.
No, but it's true. It's like kind of like people like in the back were like kind of realizing that YouTube was changing. And then when they removed that slogan, it's like everyone's like, okay, they've kind of said it. Like we want like the polished, clean, like more high production and not just people just posting whatever. So like they changed, I guess, their brand image. And yeah, it's kind of like from what they've been demonetizing to what they've been saying and the rule changes and all of that, you can kind of see that it's not for just people
the amateur
mucking around, which is a bit sad. I have seen a few like a resurgence of some of that stuff very recently, but it's, you know, very small fry stuff. Doesn't really get the traction anymore. But yeah, so that's a good video. I think I should watch it. So.
I haven't finished it, but it seems like full of value, and I think for any creator, if you're a creator listening, and I think it's a good way of looking at the legacy of YouTube by the creators who've been through it all, right, and what you can expect down the line. So interesting video. What about you?
I've watched a lot of stuff, but I guess one thing I'd like to kind of touch on is like this channel called Middle 8. So
I love the music stuff. So
it's like a music kind of, and also the punk rock MBA. I've been watching that as well. I don't know if you've heard about him. Okay, but basically, so it kind of goes over different bands and how they started and like what they're doing right or wrong and other things like that. But there was one video. Well, there was two interesting ones. Like one was on Lil Nas X and how he became so successful. And turns out, like he was like a social media genius essentially. But also he did something interesting with the Spotify algorithm. He kept like re-releasing different remixes of the same song so he could stay at the top for like so long. I was like, that's really interesting. And also there was another video on the real meaning behind Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it turns out there wasn't really a meaning. So like Dave Grohl stated that basically, Kurt Cobain was just like saying things that sounded good and like, rhymed and whatnot. Because like in different interviews, he'd always say something different, like it was a revolutionary song or something. And then like later on, he was kind of like, it didn't really have a meaning. And then Dave Grohl confirmed that. But it was just interesting to also see how that song blew up and how the idea for it came about, which I'm not sure if you know, but it was actually like a woman's deodorant called Teen Spirit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then Kurt's girlfriend had it and sprayed it on him or something. And he fell asleep later, and then on a whiteboard or something, she wrote like, Kurt smells like Teen Spirit, and then he woke up and was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Oh, wow!
So
incredible.
Yeah, so that was interesting, just like learning about random music stuff. Because like my ranges aren't just technology. I like a lot of stuff. So.
I mean, you make music, so I totally get it. I'm very much into music myself. So on 2 points on that. So the one about Lil Nas X kind of hacking the algorithm in some ways. The reason why you see a lot of big artists drop 20 plus song albums today is simply because of trying to get more streams on Spotify.
Right.
So you look
Makes
at
sense.
Drake and Kanye, and like Kanye's dropped like 2 different Donda albums, and Drake's releasing 20 plus albums, like little interludes, like 30 seconds is one track, right? So it's interesting how the medium shapes the art. So radio songs, for example, the pop songs have a formula because radio needed a certain slot at the time that you can only have 3 minutes or 2 minutes, right? So, and people started making songs to fit that medium, right?
That's I never really thought about that.
It's the same like YouTube videos as well. Think about how they were having more advertisements on 10 plus minute videos.
So everyone started going
people started
longer.
making longer videos, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how technology shapes the art and content that we create. So that's one point. The second one is, if you're into music stuff, I highly recommend this podcast called Dissect.
Okay.
It's a Spotify original, and what this guy does is he goes in depth with one album at a time, and he'll break down like each album's songs through cultural context and stuff. But it's very hip hop focused. If you've listened to any of like Kendrick Lamar or anything of that sort, highly recommend that episode.
Cool. Thanks for the recommendation.
No worries. Any comments of the week from you?
Yeah, sure. I've got one from the BBG31, and he says, "Yes, please do talk more about music production. I'm a music producer too, and your songs like Ikigai and Nostalgia Dreams inspired to produce in your style. Who influences Burn Water, the artist? What are the genres? And would you consider a breakdown of those 2 songs on your Burn Water channel? Peace." A breakdown of those songs, maybe. I think that could be very interesting. People might want to see like my the way I go about things in terms of like essentially tools to use and like compression settings or like mixing and how that goes down. But as for influences, like again, it's just so crazily wide. Like when I began like making stuff was like post rock, I guess. Yeah. So like I like that big, expansive, like kind of emotional journey that
Helios and
Sigur Rós and that kind of thing, Hammock, all of that. So that kind of wave that you could ride throughout a song. But then like as I progressed, like I found like metal stuff as well, like very interesting, like in terms of like the rhythmic areas of that, and then like trance, I got into that a little bit. But then so like I'm a big fan of R&B and stuff as well, so I kind of wanted to combine different elements of stuff. So it's like R&B vocals and like hip hop beats, but it's like a very progressive journey in a way. So it's like just combining the stuff that I like. But as for particular artists like Balam Akab, he I think is amazing. Well, his earlier stuff anyway. A.G. Cook, British producer, I think, who worked with Charlie XCX a lot. He's got some really good stuff. Takuami, who's a Japanese producer, like he's more like the post-trappish stuff, like a very big trance mixed with trap, like in a Japanese way. It's very interesting. But yeah, just a lot of different stuff that I listen to, and like onto metal and stuff, and like math rock, and it's all everywhere. But yeah, a lot of broad stuff that I kind of draw from. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, very cool comment. I think it's good to see this like different sides of you trying to bring it in as well. It seems like we should do a music podcast.
Okay, this is now
it's now full through the web music podcast now. But since we're both interested, it could have interesting angles in the future. I'm not on this podcast. We won't we won't nerd out as much.
Yeah, we're not going to try and derail. Yeah. But what about yourself? What comment did you?
I like the comment from Lee G. It says it's just great that both of you admit if you don't know enough about something and give room for the listeners to educate or inform you instead. This makes the podcast really comfortable to listen to, follow, and later research about the topics on your own. Great work, guys. Keep it on. I love this comment because I think this is something we even spoke about before we started the podcast. Like, we aren't experts per se in these topics. We are very much interested in the things that we discuss, and we try to bring our own personality and our own angles to it. So this is something we consciously try and do, that if we don't know something, we're not going to pretend that we do. So it's good to see some people pick that up.
Very nice.
So the first topic of the week is that Netflix is on the news again because they're being sued by its own shareholders.
Yeah, I found this a very interesting twist to the story. I guess just because not that long ago, Netflix was the darling of like, you know, high growth stocks. This is going to keep going on forever. But yeah, and then they've turned around and said like we don't like the performance. But the lawsuit alleges that the Netflix staff, well, not staff, but the higher ups kind of lied, but like misled how well the company was actually doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about the details of that, but I don't know. A lot of this kind of seems like it's not directly Netflix's fault per se. Like, yes, they could have a little bit of better content. Maybe the price could be a bit lower, etc. But I don't know if it's warranted enough to cause a lawsuit. Because I think the law is like, you know, the companies are legally obligated to, you know, benefit the shareholders, I think. So that's what came out in the Elon Musk Twitter debacle. But yeah, so I don't know how much weight it's going to have, but still, it's just a sign of the times for Netflix and streaming in general, I think. So
yeah, I think I'm just gonna read out the details. So the lawsuit accuses Netflix of making materially false and or misleading statements about its business operations and not disclosing to investors that it was exhibiting slower acquisition growth due to, among other things, account sharing by customers, increased competition from other services. The company's wrongful acts and omissions led shareholders to suffer significant losses and damages. Yes, I think they're probably just reaching a little bit because, I think they had forecast that it would gain 2.5 million subscribers during the quarter, and it said that they were being healthy, but instead they lost 200,000 subscribers over in April, where it was the first quarter of 2022. So gaining 2.5 million subscribers versus losing 200,000 is a fair bit.
That's true. But then I guess you got to. How much did they lose from pulling out of Russia? It was a few hundred thousand.
200,000 easily.
Like that is a big miss. But it's not the first company in the world to ever have missed a projection. So it's like,
I think they're just trying to ride on the
sentiment.
On the sentiment and just what's it like, kicking them while they're down kind of thing. So but I don't know how this will build the future for Netflix going forward. I think obviously they are struggling, and you're making a video on that as well and going into detail. So do check it out on the ColdFusion channel if you're listening in. But I don't know how can they come back from something that's it seems like everything's against them. Usually people support at least something when something's down, but seems like no one's coming to save Netflix. Like the subscribers, the shareholders, the mass media, like everyone's on their back.
I don't know, it's kind of sad because Netflix was the one who paved the way and changed the landscape and really did a lot of things. But I guess that's kind of sometimes the penalty of being first. Like some people come along and arguably do it better than you for less money. So it's like, I don't know. I guess it's just a matter of they were the first, and it's just that's.
What about customer loyalty? Do you think there's a concept that's slowly going away in terms of
more so than for previous generations or for whatever? Like, I guess with Netflix, it's kind of like they're just banking on people being too lazy to switch over. It's like, I got Netflix, whatever. But I think if you're basically the most expensive streaming option there is, and there's so much competition, it's like eventually that's going to kind of come back to bite you. So I don't know. I'm not sure what they can do, like what the future would hold for them. Like, there are ways to turn it around, but it's going to be quite hard. Yeah.
Well, I want to move on to. Is there anything else you want to?
I
want to move on to the next story. It's about the company Cameo. So for those who don't know, it's a company that takes requests from people to get personalized videos from celebrities. So they have a list of celebrities on their site who signed up to Cameo. You can request like a 30-second clip from Snoop Dogg, for example, and then you pay, I don't know, the amount that they charge, and it's a personalized happy birthday message or something straight from celebrities themselves. So they became quite popular, especially during the pandemic as well, and they reached unicorn status just last year. So I don't know if for those who don't know the term unicorn in the venture capital world means a company that has a valuation of over $1 billion. So just a year after reaching that unicorn status, they have now laid off 87 members of its staff. And it was announced by their CEO on a tweet, and I'm just going to read that out. So it says, "Today has been a brutal day at the office. I made the painful decision to let go of 87 beloved members of the Cameo famio. If you're looking to hire hungry, humble, smart, kind, curious learning machines who love to win, and you see Cameo on their resume, look no further."
Look, so that's it? Like you didn't send the
No,
stuff?
I'm sure there's been internal memo and stuff, but this was the PR announcement in some ways, or in fact the CEO just going out on his own Twitter too.
But Cameo famio, like read the room. Like this is not at a funeral. Would you go like Billy Bob? Like, you know, it's kind of like it's kind of like,
finger pointing, Billy Bob. I mean, it depends how fun Billy Bob was. If he was a big fan of the finger pointing guns.
True. But say he was a serious guy who just got fired before he died. You know, you wouldn't do this kind of stuff. Well, I see it as bad taste anyway. But yeah, like interesting. I think in the grand scheme of things, we talked about this before with the FANG stocks and everything, and how they saw such high growth during the pandemic. I think like Cameo going to unicorn status was just another symptom of this like overvalued stock market, essentially.
100%.
Like a lot of cheap money going in, everything roared up, and Cameo kind of just got dragged along with it.
And we spoke about Clubhouse versus Spotify, where Clubhouse was valued at this ridiculous $1 billion valuation for
nothing.
Where them now?
Yeah, so it's like, can we now on this podcast like coin this the startup bubble? Like after the .com bubble, the pandemic had a lot of startup bubbles. Well, I don't know if that's right or not, but it's
post-pandemic startup bubbles bursting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the time for let's throw money at anything is kind of leaving, and then we're starting to see things kind of come back to what they should be valued, and some were quite a lot over what they should have been. So I think that's just a symptom of this. But as for the tweet, I think it's bad taste.
Yeah, dude. When I heard the tweet, especially that Cameo famio part, was like, dude, like this is not the time to have your corporate culture, BS on, and especially the ways like I've made the painful decision. Like I empathize that CEOs have to take like it is difficult to let someone know that you're not part of the company anymore, or giving that really heartbreaking, painful news. So it is difficult to be a CEO. I get that, but it can't be more than somebody losing their job post pandemic, and especially saying it like this. And I think this is also an indication of the types of CEOs we see in these companies these days, right? And even during the pandemic, I think there was this viral video of this guy.
Zoom meeting.
Yeah. So there's this guy just letting everyone know via Zoom call that you're not going to be part of the company anymore, right? So I think it's this lack of empathy, this lack of understanding of what the company or what the people are really. Like 87, sure, it's a large number, but for them it could be just a number, right? Because they're looking at what's making the company money and what's not, and unfortunately they're not looking at them as human beings. So and this is a clear indication of that. And I think this is something you've covered in some of your videos as well. Like, and this is a question that get asked often: that do CEOs need to be the way they are, like absurd, aggressive, weird, like the WeWork dude, right? The CEO, I forgot his name.
Adam Neiman.
That guy. He's got a whole show dedicated to him now on Apple TV.
I think a year after, I
got it on Apple TV.
Okay.
Some really good shows in there. But that CEOs like that, right? Like it seems like, Steve Jobs and the Zuckerbergs and the Elon, like there's something.
Yeah, so it's like, is there just a regular guy that's a CEO? I don't know.
Like Jeff Bezos, like everyone, like all the big CEOs seems to have this tendency. But I don't know if you become that once you get into that position, or you need to bet.
I think you have to have something.
Like a bit of a psychopath.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to say that, but there needs to be some kind of eccentricity. I don't know which angle it's pointing. If it's psychopath or like whatever angle it's pointing, that I think there needs to be something for you to break it out. But I don't know what the correlation is, or if it's just I'm not sure.
I'm sure that there's some sort of study out there. Probably interesting to look into it.
Yeah,
Like what does the study say about CEOs and the companies that they build and their personal traits?
Yeah, but I think there's that like for the really big stuff, and then there's the startup CEOs who have this like hustle culture and just like work everyone into the ground, and it's like, you know, all they care about is the numbers, and then they have this cult around like different languages that their business is going to use. Like, for example, the Cameo, Fameo, and stuff like that, where it's like, I don't know, it reminds me of yoga, like, what is it, like latte sipping yoga. Woman, like that kind of cultish
girl boss vibe.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I don't know why that's happening either.
Did you ever drink the Gary V Kool-Aid?
So I didn't, but I guess partnered with someone for my Instagram who was like, what you got to do is like product funnels or whatever, like where it's like you like snip up pieces of content or whatever, and it's like it didn't work. But like,
what's your like take on Gary?
On Gary V? I think he has some good advice, but I think some of the stuff he says is not so good. Essentially, like the hustling and like you got to break your back and do all of this and that. And, yeah,
so I definitely drank the Gary V Kool-Aid like 2014, 2015.
Yeah,
that's when I first found him. Yeah. He wasn't as big as he was still very big in certain culture. But today, if you go on TikTok and YouTube, like he's being shat on like by everyone. Like he's being made fun of, and
all right,
like finally people are like, I also like, he was one person who I didn't see get made fun of as much, but slowly this year, last couple of years, I've been seeing a lot of that. So my take on it is because I've kind of seen his growth a little bit. It is true that he does say a lot of weird stuff, and some of it is just crazy weird, right? But I think a lot of people also miss the context, like when he says, you got to break her back kind of thing. His bottom line has always been that if you complain that you're not in a good place, then you got to work. But if you're happy, I'm not telling you to break or do everything that I tell you. You don't have to listen to me kind of thing.
Right.
He literally said, don't listen to me if you've got it together.
Right.
But if you want to get it together, this is what's worked for me.
Right.
This is what I think you should
and
do.
Like you got to, you can't hate on him for giving out advice, but I think sometimes maybe the execution could be.
I agree. And I think this is where that eccentricity.
Yeah.
I'm done with talking for the day. That's where that shows up for a lot of these CEOs, because he's a CEO himself, and I think that little character trait is very present in CEO. So I guess you gotta be taking these advices with a bit of grain of salt.
Yeah. Well, let's put a pin on this and say we got to come back with a study about CEOs.
Yeah, I think we should do that for the next episode.
But I am pretty sure though. So just one last thing, that like sociopaths were more likely to be a CEO. Like, not caring about other people's emotions or being attached to them and just like using other people to get your way.
That's also about being a leader. Like if you go back, like who would command like big soldier packs and stuff like that, needed to get themselves removed from the emotions. But sometimes you got to take decisions that are not emotional based. And I think you're right. But I'll definitely go back and check a study and come back next week.
All right.
See how it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
The next story of the day is Apple versus the European Union. It's not the first time they've gone head-to-head, but this time Apple's been hit with an antitrust accusation by the European Union over its exclusion of rivals from its Apple Pay mobile payment system. The Commission takes issue with the decision by Apple to prevent mobile wallets app developers from accessing the necessary hardware and software on its devices to the benefit of its own solution, Apple Pay.
Interesting. What about Samsung Pay? Do they allow other competitors?
I don't know.
Because as you were saying that, I was thinking about that. I was like, if they don't, then what grounds? Yeah, what grounds is there?
But I think they probably do, which is why EU's taking this straight at Apple.
Okay, that's an assumption. I'd assume so. But yeah, it's just like everything else Apple does. This exclusion of other parties. So it's not a surprise that they've done this. And I think the EU and Apple are kind of butting heads a lot. Like that USB-C debacle, that was another thing. Instead of Lightning adapters, the EU wants Apple to use USB-C for consumer benefit, which is good. I think that's a good thing to do. But it's Apple that we're talking about here, when they've just had the biggest walled garden on hardware and software and how there's interplay and just keeping everyone outside the wall. So maybe this will be a first domino to fall in the business model that Apple's been so diligently upkeeping. So I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I think as more and more countries and take interest in consumer protection, we'll see more of these happen. I think Apple also lost this acquisition battle or lawsuit battle in Brazil. I gotta get my terms right, but I think it was about the chargers. So how Apple doesn't add chargers anymore. The acquisition was that what if it's a new consumer who's never bought an Apple product, they won't have a charger, and they have to pay an extra something on top, right? So I think the conversation was that the charger is part of the entire pack.
But remember in the 90s, for every kid's toy, batteries sold separately. Like
true.
I don't know, like. I believe that these are very subtle things. I don't know, maybe if like consumer protection has just heightened that much, but I feel like, a few decades ago, if this was some other company, like there wouldn't be that much.
Yeah, I think again, being the big behemoth you are,
I guess it's the size.
In the tech world, you will get like arrows and targets.
Yeah, I think that's probably more closer to it. So it's more the fact that Apple's become so large, and it's like they're still trying to keep that power, and I guess like. Yeah, some governments don't like that. Okay. Well, I think it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Like Apple has a lot of lawyers, so they can argue anything really. So
yeah, but I think we were wanting to do a separate episode on Apple in itself. Is that if they're losing their touch as well? We'll keep an eye and ear out for that one. In the future we'll do an exclusive episode just on Apple. But I think for this story specifically, with the NFC input, I think the just gonna read out the final part of it. It says that today's statement of objections takes issue only with the access to NFC input by third-party developers of mobile wallets for payments in stores. So it's mostly about allowing third parties to be able to get into the mobile wallets for payments. So I don't know how they might play this one out. I feel overall EU probably will get their way in this case because I think more and more. EU specifically is very adamant towards protecting its citizens and its consumers.
And even moreover, though, the potential consequences that the EU could blow on Apple could be like they could say, all right, every Apple device with an NFC chip you can't sell here. Like, what will that do? So it's kind of like, the EU could get their way if they really put their weight and throw it around. So
and like I said, like they've been fighting against Apple previously. Even like they've been issuing warnings to Elon Musk about Twitter. We decided we weren't going to bring him up this episode. He just makes his way somehow.
You mentioned him.
I mentioned him finally. It's like we've talked so much about him in the last few weeks. I wasn't going to mention him this week, but it just finds his way. But that's it. I promise. No more in this episode. Next up is something we touched on few episodes ago, just about last month, was the historic win by the Amazon union. The first time where they, a group of Amazon warehouse workers fought against the anti-union situation against Amazon, and they had a great voting towards in favor of a union. But going ahead, just this week, news came out that the workers for a second warehouse, was overwhelmingly rejected a union bid on Monday, dealing a blow to organizers who last month pulled off the first successful U.S. organizing effort in the retail giant's history. This time around, warehouse workers cast 618 votes, or about 62% against the union, giving Amazon enough support to fend off a second labor win as the tech giant continues to try and overturn its first loss. So this is the second Amazon warehouse at Staten Island that said no to a unionizing effort.
So it was the staff that obviously had a vote and said no.
That's right.
So, I I think a lot of people say that Amazon is kind of doing some brainwashing behind the scenes. It's kind of like, they're scared to speak up because, they could be prosecuted. And it's like, don't mention these. They've got like a list of words not to mention.
Yeah.
It's like, if you see people like, grouping together and stuff, like report to your superior and all this, like, it's like crazy. But all that aside, in terms of the trajectory of what this means for Amazon, like to have one go through and then the second one rejected and then the first one maybe be withdrawn. Not sure how that will work legally, but I don't know. Like it's showing that there's like a change and a shift happening, but it's almost like it's not yet. It's like maybe in the future, like this, like it'll break through again. But as for the time staying, maybe like Amazon will just kind of hit back and keep their grip on the slaves which work there. No offense to anyone working for Amazon, like you guys are doing a great job.
I think obviously the conversation, again, without going too political about it, is union versus big corp, right? Unionizing has obviously had some big impact. Like I know that we have a 9 to 5 because of union and labor rights protection.
Didn't know that. Right?
Yeah, they fought for having a standard hour schedule for workers. But other than that, today it's obviously a big heated debate about the whole thing. And I think what it starts doing is, I think the first one when they won against Amazon, it was a big historic movement. I think I saw the news about it everywhere. Like people were cheering, people were booing, or depending which side you're on the story. But given that they're losing the second one, I think it puts a big dent on the first one now. And I think this will potentially stop it from growing any further, because now the Amazon has enough leverage to say, hey, look, even the second Staten Island warehouse is not with them. Why would you want to be with someone who's, can't even get the second in the same kind of area, right? So I think that's going to work for Amazon, and I think that maybe this is the end of the line for LU.
But maybe to maybe quash these kind of things happening again, we could end up seeing some compromises. So Amazon might be like, okay, instead of having to pee in your bottle on the conveyor line, you can go to the toilet.
Well, and that's the whole point of a union.
I'm exaggerating.
No, of course. We do take things a bit on an exaggerated level here, but I think the whole point of union is that so you don't have to pee in a bottle while you're working, right?
Yeah.
You're not given like an 8-minute, break, and with the big robot looking over your shoulder. If it's 8:01 and there's like a big shotgun right at your back kind of thing. I mean, that's a dystopian world some of the sci-fi has built for us, right?
Yeah.
But
Why did you have to go there, man? It was so unexpected. So unexpected, like a robot with a shotgun. Oh, shit.
8:01. Sorry, man.
Time's up.
He dies, and then you go to the funeral of Billy Bob. It's Billy Bob. He died.
That's how he got fired.
But no, I think it is going to be quite difficult for another one to continue from here. So
yeah, I agree.
Moving on to the next news, a bit of VR news. I've got virtual reality news for you, and it's about a technology that can make you feel spiders crawling on your mouth.
So, I have a lot of questions. One, why? And 2, how? And 3, who?
4, why again? Look, so I think it's obviously the idea of VR is, I think we talked about this a few episodes back as well, where I said that the final frontier for VR is to hijack the senses, every sense, right? And touch and feel is the final part, which it's difficult to replicate. So I think this is the part that they're working towards. So the device works by bombarding the lower half of your visage with harmless ultrasound waves from 64 tiny transducers, building up enough pressure that it actually dents your skin. This is told by Shen, who co-authored a yet to be peer-reviewed paper about the tech. The device has some limitations, though. While it can replicate disconcerting experiences like a tiny spider running across your mouth, the device won't be able to generate enough force to simulate a punch or slap, for better or worse. So Will Smith probably won't be able to use it. It can, however, replicate the sensation of you taking a sip of coffee, a puff of cigarette, or even brushing your teeth. So there's a video of it. I'll put it up on the YouTube channel. So those who are listening in only, do check out our YouTube channel to watch the video. It basically is a VR game of this woman going through a forest with a gun, and it's like a forest full of spiders. So if a spider jumps on her face, like that's what the VR sees, it just scuttles around your mouth. So I think the concept of it is how obviously fear and all this kind of stuff plays well into VR. I think the early VR games, are roller coasters or jumping or walking across this big plank on a building. So I think that extreme adrenaline is replicated with spiders is the first use case. Yeah. But what I liked about it was interesting. You take a sip of coffee, puff of cigarette, or even brushing your teeth.
I think even beyond this, I'm actually most fascinated at the method.
Yes.
So I need to understand a little bit about how this works. Is it like you have a room tracking and
so again, I'll show you the thing. It's got this little like pointers right across the VR headset that go straight around your mouth.
Okay, so it's just a facial thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so cigarette and coffee is a normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's interesting. That's new. I haven't ever thought or heard about that kind of tactile feedback method. Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool. Like although the limitation is just around your mouth, but you can imagine. I guess I don't know if you've seen those haptic gloves that have like little like
gestures.
No, not so much, but like not hydraulics, but like what would you call it? Like ligaments like this.
Right.
So essentially, like when you touch something, it stops where it would. Yep. So combine that with the subtle textures of like this ultrasonic sound, you could have something pretty convincing. I think. Yeah. Maybe just in the hands and the face, but I think that's it could, because it's not touching you like for the face part anyway, and it's got like it's just purely that sensation. I think that would be quite powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
So. Yeah, that's a really cool innovation. I'd like to look more into that.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's yet to be peer reviewed as well. So this is obviously the very early stages of the tech, but again, like the early stages kind of sometimes pave the way for it to be much more grand on the line. So I think it does show a lot of promise, especially again with the video, which I'll put it on the YouTube channel. It does have quite a convincing use case from what it looked like. So it should be an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Moving on. The thing we talked about, again, it was this video you watched about corporate logos, how you hate corporate.
It wasn't the logos. It was the Well, I think there was a video on logos that we talked about. It was more the art style as well. Yeah.
But the topic here today is that the Meta logo has been sued, and it was coming because as soon as the Meta logo was announced, I saw like thousands of memes of like stock images of infinity symbols that look like Meta. The Meta's M.
Right.
And funnily enough, it's actually a non-profit blockchain developer called Dfinity, whose logo looks very similar to Meta. They've sued the Meta Platforms Incorporated in California federal court this Friday, alleging a new logo adopted by the company formerly known as Facebook will cause consumer confusion with its own infinity symbol logo. The lawsuit said Meta's logo is confusingly similar, especially because Meta also outlined plans to adopt blockchain technologies in an internal memo, which would add to the likelihood of confusion between the companies. So similar product offerings, similar logos, lawsuit in the hands of Mr. Zuckerberg.
I have to see the logos. Have you seen them? Like
I have not seen them, but we will see it right now.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Colors are all different. Meta logo is a bit more compressed. That is an infinity symbol. Like you can't really patent that, Yeah. Like you can't patent a square. It's
try me. I want to patent a square now.
But like Meta is like, I don't think so.
I think it's the colors that are different. But if you do like, let's say, would you say this is similar in any way? Like a black and white version?
Because when I see Meta, I actually see that M because it's compressed,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's just an infinity symbol, which is you know that's.
So you do.
So
you don't think they've got a
I
case?
don't. I think a reasonable judge wouldn't rule that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, but I think the idea of Meta going into this, because this is not the first logo that looks like that. You know what I mean? Like that infinity symbol is such a common theme across logos. Like just go into any stock logo stuff and write infinity, you'll see that everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think you're right in saying that you can't really do that. But then what if a few other companies start making similar logos to Meta? Would Meta then have a ground on?
Well, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so the differentiating factor with the Meta logo is that it's squished to look like an M. So like if another company did an infinity logo, that's fine. But if they truncated their logo a little bit to look like that kind of M shape, then I'd say that's infringing.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a matter for the courts and what they decide, but just from a logical point of view, I think that's what makes sense.
What do you think about logos in general trying to be so, simplified? I think we briefly talked about it in another video, but it's getting to a point where there's this losing all characters, right? And I think to the point it's just going to be simple shapes or just fonts at this point.
Yeah, I think that's been a trend for a long time. And why it happens, I'm not so sure. Like maybe you could say that like skeuomorphism when it was like around in the iPhone, because that was such a popular product, it like transferred like everything to all design, like, but then again, because like I was thinking about Windows like XP and stuff, and that was like around the same time. So like maybe our software kind of changes, and then when everything went flat on the software side, the logos kind of did.
Yeah, and that is true. It's the same argument, or not argument, but the same idea of the medium defining the art form, which is
I was just about to say I don't know if there's some undercurrent that's kind of taking both of them along with it, or if they're related. So I'm not sure, but there's something that makes everything like move in a certain direction, and I don't know why now is the time to be simple. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's just that, as I mentioned, I think in the other video as well, where you have to think of as something as little as a 10 by 10 pixel on the website versus blowing it up all the way to be seen from billboards, right? Yeah. Everything that fits between those, and then you've got the different sizes of device screens. Is the use case for it.
That's true. I guess like, since a lot of people are consuming stuff on their phones which have, an average 5-inch, 6-inch screens, like you got to make sure your logo is legible for millions of people. So that makes sense. But I think it's also just like an aesthetic choice that like society views favorably. Like in the 70s, like we wouldn't be wearing plain shirts. We'd have like stuff everywhere, and all logos were like that too. But then, now it's just,
I think that because the tech stuff are looked at, as the frontier of innovation and future forward thinking. I think this is why everyone else is trying to adapt or adopt that mentality as well with their own design. So, but what's interesting is I think this really puts Nike logo on a different, whole level, because obviously Nike's brand is amazing. How they brand themselves over the decades, one of the strongest companies in the world, easily. But if you look at the Nike logo, it hasn't been changed. It's the same, and it's so powerful because of how simple it was. And I think people will say that now, in hindsight, it's very forward thinking because they never really had to do much to it, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure what class it is or like what you call it, but I think it's like modern furniture, like the stuff that came out in the 1930s and everything. Yes. If you look at it now, or like appliances or whatever, because they were so simple, like, and didn't have any frills of the time, like they always look modern, exactly. No matter what. So I think it's the same thing. So maybe we're just starting to realize that simple can be timeless and whatever, but then it kind of, it leads to that problem of everything being generic, and are we going to just stay with like flat shapes forever?
But also I think another interesting thing is how people react to a change. Yeah. I've never seen a successful brand change where people haven't hated on it.
Yeah, that's true. But there was one very clever example by Amazon to kind of like get around that. I think they had, I think I'm getting the story right, but back in the early 90s, they had like their homepage and it was like bright yellow, and then they decided to make it white. And then like the next day, everyone revolted and said, this is the worst thing ever. But then what they decided to do is like the coders, they would make the web page a little bit less yellow every day. So like for like a year, it like was slowly getting less and less yellow and turned to white, and then no one noticed. And it was like, yeah, that's good. So I think it's just maybe people are just like scared of change. It's the oldest thing in the book, but I don't know why, but it's like maybe it like breaks what they're comfortable with. It's like, oh, I knew what that thing was, and it's not that anymore. That kind of unsettles me. I'm not sure why, but
I think that's the thing. It is an evolutionary thing as well. We're just not adapted. Like we're not programmed to like change because we seek comfort in a lot of ways. So any change, especially for something we've been using, looking at, is met with a bit of hostility. Like any logo, like the amount of memes that I've seen with the Meta logo change, like just upside down Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff. It's like it's people and the I remember when Pepsi changed the logo, it was getting a lot of hate at the time. So I don't know if it's just because there's no objective way to say a logo is. I mean, there is no objective way to say if it's getting the function right over form. But it's the reactions always baffle me.
That's a good one. Try and think of a company that changed the logo and had a positive reaction. I can't think of one now, but I'll just keep thinking.
Segue into the next topic is a company's logo which I actually don't like, which is TikTok. I actually hate the logo.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a weird. It's bad.
I kind of like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
The whole, what do you call it? That triple color thing.
I like the RGB branding.
That's
I like the RGB branding, but the logo itself and the font that they use seems very amateur to me.
Well, I think we disagree.
See, that's
well, let me have another proper look at it and see if I
TikTok logo.
Yeah, okay. The font's a little whack.
I like the font, and also like, what does it represent? Like, is that like what is it?
Because it used to be
Musically,
Duelin combined with Musically. I'm not sure if Duelin was the word,
okay.
but like so it was
the
a
two
dance.
logos, right? So that's the music note. Is
yes,
that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I also thought it was like a wacky T.
What?
Yeah,
I clearly saw that was a music note from the get go.
Oh, it's a T.
How?
I mean, it's like the little, like a D or a T or something like that. Like,
like I don't know how. Like weird. Okay, interesting. But anyway,
now that I look at it, it looks like a music note. Yes.
Arguments aside, there is a story coming out from The Verge saying that TikTok will start to share ad revenue with creators. And they say TikTok is opening up a new way for creators to make money. The company plans to start sharing a cut of revenue with top creators when their videos run alongside certain ads. The program mirrors how YouTube pays out creators and could lead to a more significant payout from the platform, which has yet to offer a substantial way for creators to make money. The new program, called TikTok Pulse, also allows ads to specifically run alongside the top 4% of all videos on TikTok. The company wrote in a blog post, creators would have to have at least 100,000 subscribers to be eligible, and TikTok is basically going to be splitting the revenue 50-50, which is quite similar to what YouTube does.
Wow, okay. It sounds definitely better than their TikTok fund that they used to have, where it's like this limited pool of dollars that everybody's just shared, and every time you'd get bigger, more people in, the share would be less and less. Definitely a better approach than that. But I don't know how much. Like, I'd love to see the numbers that people.
Yeah, obviously it hasn't been stated yet, but I assume because it's such short content, it would be less.
They've got 3 minutes, and then I think they're looking at 10-minute videos as well. I haven't seen much 10-minute videos on TikTok, to be honest. If it's live, I think it should be live by now. But if it isn't, I haven't seen many. And even if there is, I don't think I'd be spending 10 minutes on an app. Like, even on YouTube, I don't watch. Like, I'm not going to watch that 1 hour, 30 minutes long video on my phone. I'm going to watch it on my computer or TV, right?
Yeah. I'm the same, except iPad I might be able to.
Yeah, iPad's probably a bit more.
But yeah, the thing that just look, I'm stuck in 2016, but vertical videos, man, like for some reason, like they irk me, especially for longer content. Like, I don't know. It's like, remember Quibi? Like watching 10, 15 minute vertical videos. It's like, I don't know. It's a strange.
I think it's a bit of adaptability as well.
Yeah.
Because I used to make jokes about taking videos vertically. You remember the whole meme, like, horizontal video versus vertical video?
Yeah.
You can't, like, taking a vertical video was a sin in this.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm still there.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't moved my head from that.
But I think stories and Snapchat helped me get into, you know, being more adaptable to that concept.
But I guess, like, you know, when you're having vertical videos, I think that's very suited to people's faces and like they're like standing up and that kind of stuff. So that's why you get a lot of dancing and a lot of like, you know, back and forth between people like that. But it's kind of, I think it's kind of shaped the content in a certain way.
I think you're right. I think, say, a ColdFusion video wouldn't work vertically, mainly because, you know, of the type of information you need to show and say, and I think it needs that cinematic approach, which is horizontal wide ratio, right? You won't, like, a feature length film vertically would be a horrible experience. So I think a short form,
someone's going to make it.
I know. I'm sure there already, but it would be interesting to see how I like it. I think for short form content, for stories, I think it's great, and I think you can be artsy and creative with that format. I've seen, like, one of my favorite creators is called American Baron on TikTok. Like, he makes cinematic pieces, like short philosophical cinematic, beautiful. Like,
okay,
I'll send some of the stuff to you. But other than that, it's like, you know, those are few and far between, right? It's also very heavily relying on people's facial expressions, human beings, and less about, like, you can't have a landscape video on a vertical, like, you have to like, just go pan the entire thing to show. Yeah. So So, but about the creator fund itself, I think it'll be interesting to see how much actually the top percentage of people make, because on TikTok it's actually easier to get a lot of views, but it's totally different to YouTube, because on YouTube you're more connected to the creator. On TikTok you're more connected to the feed. So I don't go back and check. So I use TikTok as a lurker, so which means I don't post as much. But I don't go back to the creators' profiles and check out what they have posted over the last few weeks, kind of thing, right? There's the For You page, which is the central feed. I'm just there, just you know, whatever comes my way, I'll kind of watch.
So I guess the biggest creator on TikTok is the algorithm.
In some ways, yeah. Do you use TikTok, Brayden?
Yeah, a little bit. I tried to make some stuff that's like relevant to what I do, but it's hard to engage people. You know what I mean? If you're with specific type of content, it's more focused on trends and.
Yeah, because you're cinematic in some ways, because, you know, you're into filming and photography. So how does that impact your TikTok use versus YouTube?
Oh, it's completely different. Like, you can't really. I mean, you can just go and make a phone sized version, a 9:16 version of a video you've done elsewhere, and I tried that, but it doesn't. I mean, again, unless you've got a ton of followers that are people who specifically want that, you're not going to get any views on it. You know, the most I got was like 700 on a random astrophotography clip, and that was about it. But yeah, I feel like it's just for short hits of engagement, and that's it. You can't really do anything long form.
Yeah, and then the trending sounds as well, I think, is what picks up a lot of the stuff. But when it blows up, and I think that's the thing about
TikTok. Yeah, in a way, a bit of a lottery. It's like the winnings are huge, so a lot of people play. So,
and I think one little hack that people use is they'll start a video vertically, and then after 2 seconds they'll say rotate it now, and then they'll sync it to the music. So you have to kind of do that. So they kind of use little hacks like that to bring in some horizontal stuff.
Yeah, I'm an old man. That's the verdict. I don't know. Like, TikTok is just
old man.
TikTok's just another world, man.
Just on the realm of TikTok, I actually want to end. We're going to go into the Q&A that people have asked from the last week, but I'm going to go into a feel-good news of the day that involves a TikToker. So there's a TikTok star called Becca Moore. She's basically a bona fide You know, her TikTok star.
No. I've heard this story.
You've heard the story already?
Yeah.
Right. So basically, she's a bit of a bona fide celebrity, has over 1 million followers, if I'm not mistaken. She went to Coachella, and then she was, being followed by this random dude, loses her phone, her purse, everything, wallet, her keys to her rental car. Basically, the guy who was, after her, stole everything from her. She was stranded. The hotel staff were kind enough to give her Uber ride, pay for Uber ride from the point to the hotel. And this is where the story gets interesting. So the Uber driver goes in and asks her about the situation. And instead of just simply going to the police, which they did, and they weren't very helpful, the Uber driver took it on himself to find the crook. And there was lots of back and forth. They ended up actually not finding the guy, but finding the stuff that was located. And this was through a lot of conversations and a bit of spying, not spying, but more like, espionage kind of level. Solving a bit of a puzzle and mystery by the Uber driver. But the thing of why I wanted to talk about this specifically is because the Uber driver, he has a daughter who is suffering from cancer, and his father was also suffering from cancer at that time, and he was doing extra shifts to make that extra buck to help with treatment and chemotherapy. And when Becca heard about that story, she started a GoFundMe page on her profile, and today they have raised over $150,000 to help the Uber driver. During that whole ordeal, his father actually passed away, so they couldn't use that money for his treatment, but majority of it will go to his daughter and for the funeral services for his father. So very shortened version of the story, and I wanted to say that because we cover a lot of dystopian stuff, but I thought this is the power of the internet, and I think this is this brilliant story.
We need more of this, and I think this is the good side of people coming out and coming together for a common good. So it's like we see so much arguing and people wanting to beat each other up online, but it's like there are good people out there. But I think it's just maybe they're silent. They don't want to get involved in stuff, and they still want to do good. So it's good to see this kind of stuff happen, and I think we need more of it. And I hate to bring a bad thing into this, but there's also like people that do this but just scam. Like it's like, I need money for cancer.
It's like, the amount of scams on GoFundMe is insane.
So there's that too, but like at least this one had a happy ending.
And I think that's the thing is like we don't hear these stories a lot, and even if we do, they're always kind of like very hard to find between all the negatives.
Because I think we've talked about this before, but positive stories just do worse. Like for example, on my channel, I covered some positive stuff. Like for example, the spinal implants video. And that was, amazing. It's like, this new technology that had like perfected technology that had been around for a while and had people walking after just one day after the surgery. And like, they're walking like 1 kilometer and they were completely paralyzed before. And that video performed the worst out of all my videos in about 3 years. And then like I make a scammer video and people are like, woo, yeah. It's like, guys.
I think we spoke... People literally celebrating, popping up champagne bottles, like, there's another scam video today. But no, I think we spoke about this, about the mentality of human beings in general. I think that somehow our interests peak when we look at things falling apart. But when things are doing well, I think there's the dopamine hit where we enjoy it. Like, okay, it's good, but look at this guy.
But maybe it's because like, throughout history, humans like have been made to struggle and nothing was ever easy. So it's kind of maybe we're always looking for that conflict or that thing that, I don't know. It's just a
But I think there's also the idea of just the positive people. Like, again, like when you compare with trolls, for example, like the comments that people leave, like the negative stuff, right? Like, for example, you follow a lot of people you look up to, right? Like on YouTube, in the music world, there's people I'm sure you love and respect, right? How many times have you gone on out of your way to leave a comment or shared their work to someone else and say, this piece of content changed my life? Like out of
it's been rare, but I have done it.
Yeah. That's what I mean, right? but there's probably more people like you than there are trolls, I feel. And I think the trolls are always louder. And I think that's where it feels like there's always negative. And we spoke about this a few times on the show already, but I think it's one thing, I guess, to leave. Well,
just before we get to that, just before the beautiful bow on the end to wrap it up. Speaking of scammers, I have my first Twitter impersonator trying to scam people.
That's right. I saw your tweet.
Yeah. So like he had got like almost 600 followers. And yeah. So it had my face, and then it like had ColdFusion _TV, but there was 2 N's. That was the only difference. So some people fell for it. But yeah, so like I was getting all these messages like saying, hey, like it happened really quick. Like, oh, like there's some guy trying to scam you. And then people posted on my like Twitter timeline. And then I was like, what the hell? So then I asked everyone to report him. And the good news is it's gone. Like they suspended the
time
account.
for the verification.
I know. I'm working on it.
For all of them. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
No, TikTok. Look, I'm probably going to regret that, but yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, if we were to kind of leave the whole story with one last thing, is that the takeaway is that always leave good comments if you feel like it. I think start with this video.
We'll see what happens if people abide by that.
Speaking of comments / questions, tried to get to a segue there as we end the show. We did ask for a few questions from you guys, from the listeners. So if you're listening in the audio only, we asked the questions on Twitter. So we've got a Through the Web Twitter handle, and we've also asked questions on the community tab on YouTube. So we'll answer a few of them today. The first question is from Dipesh Malhotra. He asks, Metaverse kids, are they going to be more depressed and anxious in the real world?
Right. I think we can look at this from the angle of not drawing everyone under the same brush. Like you're going to have people that are going to be happy, like with metaverse stuff, and you're going to have people that are going to be sad and people that are neutral. But I think the sadder ones, some of them may end up being even more sad in the real world, because like maybe the metaverse provides some kind of comfort and somewhere that they can be somewhere. Be somewhere or be someone that they couldn't otherwise be. But then when that's gone and taken away and they're in the real world and they have to be in the real world, then it's like even more of a disparity than they otherwise would have had. So maybe, we could link the same thing to escapism in video games, but I think this may be like a level above that. So I think the more depressed maybe get more depressed, but aside from that, like it's a tool. It depends on how you use it. It can be used for good and bad. I'd say that's my short answer.
Same. I agree with you as well. I think a lot of the cases, the tools amplify what we are in real life. And sometimes, as you mentioned, like if people have issues in the real life where they're already depressed and anxious and stressed, the metaverse is going to times it by 100, right? Or maybe they'll be very good in the metaverse, but once they leave it, come back to the real world, it'll just feel way worse than it did before the metaverse. So in terms of kids, though, I think the question was about kids. I think, there's actual information that the data about social media and kids is not a good pairing. I think there has to be limited use. So I wouldn't say that kids should be using metaverse as much as adults in any case.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely true.
Yeah, so I wouldn't go there. Ronak asks, why is sci-fi getting so much darker?
Because it's a reflection of how we view ourselves and our trajectory. Because sci-fi usually is like something that happens in the future, right? And I guess as a collective consciousness, maybe we're a little worried and anxious. So that kind of is reflected in the art that comes out. So if you look at the sci-fi stuff from the 1950s and 60s, it was like flying cars, everyone's happy, like everyone can do.
Is it so?
A lot of them.
Well, actually, for example, like say War of Worlds came out in 1920s. It's like death and destruction.
But the world, there was like 1920s or...
Well, 1920s was the radio show. I think 1930s, 1920s was the radio show. And then there was a...
Yeah, if it was 1930s, that was a very depressing time because they had the Great Depression, World War II was just around the corner. So it was like, I think it's a kind of a reflection of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the 50s and 60s had a brighter outlook, I would assume. But then,
1938. War of Worlds.
That was
broadcast.
like the worst of the worst time. So yeah, that was
Yeah, because in the 20s, I remember looking at what people thought of the future. There was like these postcards. It's like this viral thing. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, but
it was like these flying cards and stuff.
The 20s was like human progress was unlimited. Like, look at the stuff we're doing. Look at the economy. It's like great. Like, I think it's literally just a reflection of what people are feeling at the time.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. David Dills asked, "What's your favorite kind of quiche?"
Quiche?
Yeah, quiche.
I don't
You don't like quiche?
No, I don't really know what it is.
You don't know what you know what quiche is?
Look, I've heard of it, and I know what it looks like. Oh wait, is it like eggs, cheese, and something or other? Yeah.
Brayden, teach Dagogo what quiche is.
It's just egg and something. I don't like it either, honestly. It's too eggy for me.
I love eggs. I'm not a big fan of quiche either.
Well, that's a triple no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I kind of had a rough idea of what it was, but it's not a huge
fair enough.
part
So
of
it's not like you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
It was within Dagogo's realm of
knowledge.
Yeah. So David, we're sorry if you actually like quiche. Rashik Islam, hey Rashik, asks, what's one phone feature that you wish you could bring back?
One what?
Phone feature that you wish you could bring back. And
Okay. Oh, okay. So this isn't one that I had, but this is one that I believe that should be reinvented. So Samsung, back in 2011, they had a phone called the Galaxy Beam, right? And then on the top of it had like a powerful projector that you could project at a wall or a ceiling or whatever. And it was pretty decent. I watched some reviews lately when I was going through the most crazy phones. I did a video about that, and the reviews were quite positive. They were like, like maybe it's not perfect at the moment, but within a generation, it should be like every phone should have this. And like that's a feature I think they should bring back. But apart from that, I don't know. Like stereo speakers are like quite common now. With the cameras, not really any complaints of things that have been taken away. Yeah, I don't know. I think
you covered the Samsung Beam.
I just got excited about it, talk about it again. But
for me, probably
headphone jack. Sorry, headphone jack. Yeah.
Really?
Like I have some high-end headphones that need a jack. So
I thought I was gonna miss the headphone jacks, but I just don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is, you can't unless you have wireless charging. I found a lot of the times if you have an adapter. You can't charge while listening to music. But I guess if you're always using wireless, then that's fine.
Yeah. I think that's the way it's going. That's really right. We've got to thank Apple for that. For me, I think it's I use the Google Pixel, and they used to have a one hand screenshot, so I didn't need to press two buttons. They've taken that away. I hate it. I hate using two. I can't use, just take screenshots when I'm on the bus or something. I just don't have the other hand free.
Right.
So that's a feature I'd definitely bring back.
Actually, now that you say that reminded me of something. So on Samsung phones, you used to be able to swipe from the top right corner or top left corner, and then that would automatically take whatever app it is into a window. That was the easiest way to do it, but they've gotten rid of that. Now you have to swipe up and then click the button on the floating panel and then press a button, and then it goes to window. And it's like,
so I don't know if they use data for these decisions,
I don't
if
know.
they just have the boardroom meetings and be like, nope, we're just taking it away. Okay. And do the verdict style. Verdict.
Yeah.
the through the web verdict style. Casey and Andor ask, in the future, will there only be two internets, one led by the US and one led by China?
It's a
good question. It's a very good question.
I've never thought about that. Maybe there'll be even more.
Russia.
Yeah, well, Russia, I think they did say there was some, I just remember it very roughly, there was some plan of
doing
doing
this video
something.
by Tech Alter. I think he was just talking about that this week.
Yeah. Because I heard about that during the height of the war, which is still going on. But I think that obviously it's not going to be one, because I doubt, unless something drastically changes, that China is going to let their population be exposed to all the internet. I think that's a no-no. So there'll be at least two, but will there be more? I don't know. That's the way I see it. I don't think there'll be one, but there'll be two or more. So greater than two, or equal to two.
I agree. Kitty_gamer23 asks, thoughts on the future of online anonymity. Well, you're doing it perfectly fine there, Kitty.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be an uphill battle to keep it. So I think we're going to get more and more integrated with our identifications here in the real world, whether it's your country ID, your address and stuff. I think for one reason or another, that's going to kind of become the norm. And I don't think it's the greatest idea, but I think that's just the way things are going.
What, in terms of authenticating?
Yeah, so like whether it's I don't know. I guess it might be to like quell the spread of hate or disinformation or just make people more accountable. I think that's just the way it's going to go. That's what it feels like to me. Yeah. How about yourself?
I agree. I think it's going to be difficult to keep it as it is, with complete, being no one on the internet as a user. I think it needs. Well, I don't know if it needs to be, but there might be some level of authentication required. We already have that through, two-factor authentication and stuff where they.
But that's security, not so much your identity.
True. But I think something of that sort where you're not giving away complete information, but some way to still track your movements in some ways.
Yeah, but that as you're saying that's like one of the methods. I mean, one of the core principles of the blockchain, where it's like pseudo identity, where it's like you have a number that's given to you, but it doesn't give away who you are. But then I guess if law enforcement wanted to find out what that number was attached to, they could do it.
So something of that sort. What are the coming? Sujan Acharya says, what are the coming future technology that excites you, and are we heading towards the dominance of AI? I think the second part of the question, I think, the AI is pretty dominant. I think it'll be like that. It'll probably get more, but in terms of future technology
that I'm excited for, I would like to say quantum computers, but purely in a scientific sense in terms of the problems that it could solve that we've been trying for like a century to do. As soon as that comes online, I think some exciting stuff will happen. But apart from that, very capable and portable VR, I think that will be really awesome as well. Like where you just put on the headset and that's it. And
it's spider headset VRs.
Yes, with spiders coming over. But like I'm sure there's a lot of other things I could list that I can't think of right now, but like I think those are the two main ones for me. How about yourself?
I think for me it's also something that allows us to involve a lot more of the touch and feel side of things. I think using more gestures in the way we control the tech would be interesting. Next step from here. I think sometimes I feel like if I can just do that, swap my hand from left to right and just everything will be done for me kind of thing.
Are you talking about in VR or what? Like
it doesn't have to be VR. I think without VR would probably be a cool. But I think there's people Google and Facebook's been working towards neural ways of like neural wristbands through which you can control gesture as well. That's something that we can.
Do you remember I think it was on the Pixel device they used to have that what was it called?
Swipe gestures or something.
No, but there was a special chip that Google made to enable that to happen. And they got rid of it. I think it was like called Olate. I can't remember. But anyway, that was just something. Yeah.
So if you want to ask the questions, do make sure to check out the community side of things on our YouTube channel. If you're listening in, do make sure that we've got the YouTube video where you can check out the video side of things, and also our Twitter handle as well. But before we go, I actually have a final question for you from me. So for, again, a bit of context for people who are just listening and don't know ColdFusion or what ColdFusion is. ColdFusion is a channel that does deep dive into tech and innovative world of tech, business, science, things of that sort. We've been doing it for a while now. 3.3 million subscribers. For those who know, you already know who Dagogo is. Just add that context because I think you've been involved in this world of media and tech, and you're responsible in putting a lot of information to a big audience. Do you consider yourself a journalist? And if you do you feel a lot more weight on your shoulders to be that middleman of information?
I'll answer the second question first. Lately, I'm starting to feel more weight, but only because of the political tornado that's going on.
Right.
It's kind of like every word that you say can be read a certain way,
Mm.
and things that you do or don't say, people can read into it too much, but not to the extent of like I'm purposely trying to do something, but kind of like to this extent where it's like unreasonable. Like, people just get angry over nothing. And it, you try to like not let it, affect you, but it's like, why? Like, why? It's strange. So yeah, I do feel the pressure in that area. And do I consider myself a journalist? I guess in sorts, if you call a journalist trying to get to the bottom of a story or trying to, get reliable sources to bring information across, then yes, in that sense.
Right. Cool. Well, that was my question.
Very nice.
And I think that's the end of the show.
That is the end of the show. So thanks so much for listening, guys, and for watching. And until next time, catch you later.